And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
I thought it was terrific.
Not just big, it's yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome. Thanks for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jeff Morey. I'm your host. And before we get into this week's topic, Prepping 101, let's do a quick review of the big news stories of the week. On Thursday evening at about 11:10 p.m., Hurricane Helene made landfall as a powerful Category 4 hurricane about 10 miles west of Perry, Florida. Helene has caused a path of destruction as it moved into Georgia and Tennessee, killing, as of the recording time of this show, over 40 people. As of Friday evening, over 4 million people are estimated to be without power in over 6 states. In my home state of Tennessee, patients and staff of Onondaga County Hospital had to be evacuated from the roof after dangerous raging waters engulfed the hospital. And the town of Newport, Tennessee has had mass evacuations after warnings about the imminent collapse of Walters Dam in Walterville, North Carolina, and severe flooding in the downtown area. Duke Energy has since said that the dam is not at risk of collapse. Portions of Interstate 40 remain closed indefinitely after parts of the highway were washed away, and NCDOT has said that the interstate will remain impassable for some time between North Carolina and Tennessee until repairs can be made. As was the case last week when I reported on the shootings on Interstate 75 in Kentucky, this is a route I frequently travel, and of course, as the recording of this show, my company has made a couple of drivers stranded awaiting safe passage back to Tennessee. Our prayers go out to all those affected by Hurricane Helene. On Wednesday, the U.S. Congress passed a stopgap bill to avert a partial government shutdown next week. The bill, which is only temporary and would only move final decisions until after the November 5th election, passed by a 341 to 82 vote. Reports indicate that as a part of the bill, an additional $231 million was allotted toward the Secret Service following the 2 assassination attempts on former President Trump, as well as additional funding for presidential transition, among other things. Russian President Vladimir Putin said this week that a nuclear power supporting another country's attack on Russia will be considered a participant in aggression. Putin made the comments while speaking during a meeting of Russia's Security Council about change in doctrine of Russia's nuclear policy. The revised version of Russia's nuclear policy spells out conditions of nuclear weapons use in greater detail, saying they could possibly use in a massive air attack involving aircraft, drones, or cruise missiles. These statements come at a time when U.S.-Russian tensions are at an all-time high since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. In a shocking and very sparsely reported, I must say, move this week, the FCC has given the green light to a deal involving billionaire George Soros to acquire over 200 radio stations across 40 markets in the U.S. The FCC's approval process is usually known for being very slow and deliberate, but was somehow fast-tracked to approve the purchase before November's election. The radio stations combined are estimated to reach 165 million Americans. Not surprisingly, the vote to approve the purchase passed along party lines, with the FCC's 3 Democratic commissioners supporting the purchase and the 2 Republican counterparts opposing it. George Soros is well known among conservatives and conspiracy theorists as being a reported globalist and possible member of the rumored New World Order or Illuminati. In other news, New York Mayor Eric Adams has been charged this week with bribery and wire fraud in a scheme reportedly spanning nearly 10 years. According to sources, Adams received luxury hotel stays and more than $100,000 worth of free plane tickets from wealthy Turkish nationals and government officials, according to a 57-page federal indictment unsealed Thursday. Supposedly, Adams performed favors for his foreign benefactors in exchange for illegal campaign contributions and free travel benefits. Some Democrats in New York, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator John Liu, have publicly called for Adams to resign. Adams made a public address this week, openly defying the charges and asking New Yorkers to, quote, wait to hear our defense before making any judgments. He has vowed to stay in office and fight the charges. In our final news story of the week, Donald Trump has threatened agriculture manufacturing giant John Deere that he would impose a 200% tariff on imports into the United States if the company moved production to Mexico as previously planned. In a statement released by John Deere, they claim that more than 75% of sales in the U.S. are manufactured in the U.S., and they are not moving production to Mexico, as continues to be reported. Instead, we've strategically leveraged our footprint in Mexico for cab production. That transition was announced in 2022 and is being completed this year. And now mid-size skid steers and CTLS by 2026. That's a statement by the company. Multiple reports have indicated that John Deere will potentially move a great deal of its manufacturing operations to its Ramos, Mexico plant. So that covers some of the big news stories of the week. Let's move on to the topic of this episode, prepping. I've been excited to release this one in particular. So in this episode, we will discuss in detail what prepping is and how we can all be successful preppers and mentally, physically, financially, and emotionally prepare for all the horrible things that could potentially happen in our lives. When I say that, I don't mean getting cancer, losing loved ones, ending marriages, and those sort of things that are without a doubt awful things in our lives. No, I mean preparing for natural disasters, pandemics, economic collapse, rioting, burglary, violence, famine, war, these kinds of things. The kind of things that we know could very well at any given time happen. We won't be doing product reviews, or I won't be making product recommendations or anything like that. No, we're not going to be getting that specific. This episode is more of a let's think about this and take action kind of episode. For many years now, I have been what I consider to be a committed prepper. What that means is I spend a great deal of time and money preparing myself and my family for these kinds of disasters. Call me paranoid, call me crazy, call me stupid or ridiculous. That's perfectly all right with me, because I know that if any or many of these such events take place, that I will be at least somewhat prepared for what could and might happen. The preparedness industry has absolutely exploded over the last 10 to 20 years. People have become increasingly distrustful of the government, and TV shows such as Doomsday Preppers, and especially conservative groups such as the NRA, encourage a lifestyle and mentality of preparing for what the worst of what the world has to offer. I'm not sure exactly what year it was or exactly what point I decided, hey, I'm going to start prepping. But I know once I started to really take a close look at the world around me, it was a really easy decision. I come from a military family. My father served in the U.S. Coast Guard, and my granddad was in World War II. My grandfather was a decorated veteran who was a gunner on a B-24 Liberator bomber. He was awarded multiple honors, including the Flying Cross and 4 air medals. I think most military and police especially tend to become part of the prepping community. They see and experience a lot of the horrible things I've mentioned on a daily basis. But that doesn't mean that ordinary citizens like me and you can't become experienced and exceptional preppers. These are skills that everyday people can learn to better themselves and become better preppers. For example, I myself am a former licensed EMT and volunteer firefighter. Obviously, the average layperson does not have the time or the money to commit to taking an EMT course. I was fortunate enough to have my local fire department sponsor my class and completely finance it for me. I was able to take classes around my work schedule 2 days a week for a couple months before taking the state EMT testing. Becoming a volunteer firefighter is an absolutely excellent way to become a better prepper, while at the same time helping serve your community and neighbors. Not only that, but it also helps you meet people who can help educate you and form relationships that could become invaluable in the future. In the event of a disaster or economic collapse, having people that you trust may become increasingly important in the event that you need to barter, get food, medicine, and supplies that you may need, and in turn you may help supply them with supplies that they may need. On that subject, let's talk about prepping as an individual or family and prepping as a community. People will have greatly varying views on whether you should dedicate your money and resources toward prepping for you and your immediate family or trying to form a community of like-minded preppers. I guess no one really knows what is right or wrong in that situation, but my view is family first in everything. Not saying that I'm opposed to having friends and neighbors that together you form a prepping group or community. I'm just saying that in the case that things get really bad, are you sure, no matter what, that you can trust your prepping partners to do what is right collectively for the group and not put their family's needs first? Being a true prepper means always thinking about every situation and scenario, well, as much as we're capable of, And no one ever wants to talk about this, but if you're committed, you have to. How far are you willing to go to protect and provide for your family? Are you willing to steal and harm other people if it's absolutely necessary? I know no one wants to talk about or think about that kind of a situation, but True preppers have to ask themselves that kind of a question. I'm not going to continue to talk about it, but think about that for a little bit. It may change your perspective on things. On that note, when I start breaking down my pillars of prepping in a few minutes, I will discuss some things you will need to have and think about in the event you may be forced to take from another family to save yours. All right, so if you're still listening to me, listen to this, you're at least remotely interested in prepping. Are you a prepper? If you answered no, that's okay. This is a choice that people make on how they feel about their lives and the world we live in. Some people believe that government will be there for them in their time of need. Well, what if the power grid goes down for an extended amount of time? All infrastructure would be affected. Planes would be grounded. Trucks wouldn't be on the road. As a professional truck driver myself, I can tell you much of what we do nowadays is electronic. The internet and communication will be mostly shut down, except for those who have ham radios and other forms of short-range communication like CBs and walkie-talkies. Power would be out, etc. What do you think would happen to the supply chain? Here's a hint. The National Guard and FEMA won't be able to provide for the 400 million Americans in need. In a future episode, I'll be going over different disaster scenarios and talk about how to prepare for each of them. But for this episode, I'm going to discuss what every good prepper needs for everyday needs and situations. So I asked the question, are you a prepper? If you answered yes, then congratulations. You have at least partially committed yourself towards providing for you and your family in times of need. So since you are a prepper, let me ask you, how is your financial situation? Most of the time, that will determine the level of your preps. I fall into the lower middle class category myself. I prep whenever I can and whatever I can spare any kind of money to put towards my preps. But on that note, for what me and my family make and do have, because it is and has been such a high priority to me for some time, I think that we are very prepared for most situations. A great deal of what I will be discussing in this episode will be geared more towards middle and lower class, but it doesn't mean I can't help and give some good ideas to those who have much more money and resources as well. So I have mentioned scenarios when referring to disasters, war, etc. If you've ever watched the Nat Geo show from the early 2000s, Doomsday Preppers, then you saw how each episode and each set of preppers were prepping for a specific scenario such as solar flares, earthquakes, the next Great Depression, an EMP attack, and much more. I always thought it was funny, for the most part, how each person or family supposedly had a very specific situation that they were preparing for. While being mindful and aware of such situations, and especially the increased risk certain people may have to encountering such situations based on where they live, wealth, proximity to certain places, etc., I think most committed preppers will agree that preparing only for a certain situation or scenario is very foolish and short-sighted. Obviously, I was not there for the filming of the show, nor do I know or have ever met any of the preppers featured on the show, but I highly doubt that most of them were truly only preparing for those situations. I'm sure the vast majority of that was dramatized for TV. At least I hope so, because true preppers don't just prepare for a single situation or scenario. They prepare for anything and everything, at least as much as we feasibly can. That being said, we all probably have certain scenarios and events that each of us feel will be more likely to happen. I personally think that the most likely things to take place in the near future will be war, famine, economic collapse, and extreme social unrest. If you follow the world markets, I think we're on a course for an imminent collapse of the global financial market. And every day I think we're inching closer and closer to World War III. I think as a result of this, there will be global wars and a very panicked population that will end up being divided and afraid, which will lead to looting, rioting, and an unforeseen amount of crime and vandalism. Not saying that an EMP attack, nuclear war, any number of things could happen. These are just the course events that I think we're most likely to experience. But it is important that we prepare for any possible situation and scenarios and try not to focus our resources on any particular event. As I stated before, all of us are in a different financial situation, and those who are fortunate to have more money and more land, especially more remote land that has cover and natural water sources, have the means to be more successful in the event of a disaster. So, for those of us that do not have a lot of money, land, or resources with which to prep, how do we budget and prioritize for what we may need? Well, let's discuss the many things that everyone should have, and I will give you my opinion as to how to prioritize your preps and where to start. Full disclosure here, I am not a founder of a survival organization. I don't conduct seminars on prepping. I don't have military experience or survival training or any of those kind of qualifications or credentials. I do have training from my time in EMS as a firefighter, and I have read a lot of survival books, practice prepping scenarios, and consider myself to be a self-taught student of the prepping lifestyle per se. So take this information as that. Insight and experience from someone who has dedicated a substantial part of their life to prepping. Now, that being said, these are what I like to call my 15 pillars of prepping. Number 1 is planning. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire with unlimited money and resources to put towards prepping. If you have all these things and don't know what they are, how they work, or how to use them, what good are they going to be in the event of a major disaster or catastrophe? There's nothing more important to a successful prepper than preparation and planning. If disaster strikes, where will you go? Will you shelter in place at home or bug out somewhere? What will you do? Will you plan to stay at home and live off your food storage and supplies, or will you try to hunt and forage? What if you don't have electricity or clean water? If so, how long can you survive off what you have? If you choose to bug out to another location, what will you take with you? Do you have everything packed and easily and quickly accessible to grab at a moment's notice? Do you have your travel route planned out? If so, what happens if all the major roads on your route are closed or blocked off? Do you have alternate routes planned? These are all really important things you're going to need to ask yourself. I could sit here all day and ask you a million questions, but these are the questions you should be asking yourself. Here are a few quick tips to help out. Number 1, if you plan on bugging out, have your evacuation route and alternate routes planned out and maps handy in all your vehicles. Number 2, if you plan on sheltering in place, make sure you know where all your supplies are, how to use them, and have a defense plan in case you have to protect your home and belongings. Number 3, whether you are sheltering in place or bugging out, it is a good idea to always live by the philosophy of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Consider having some food and supplies hidden somewhere safe along your evacuation route or somewhere nearby if you're sheltering in place. Number 4, train, and practice. Have you and your family run drills occasionally on what you will do in the event of a disaster? I know this will be difficult for a lot of people, but if you have the time and can, try turning off your power for a couple days. I bet you're going to realize some things that you need or that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. Number 2 is your survival pack. Again, it doesn't matter if you plan on bugging out or sheltering in place. Every person in your family should have and keep a survival bag with them close by at all times. Most people choose to keep one in their vehicles. If you do so, just remember to be aware of temperature variations and how it may affect food supplies or other items in your bag. On a 90-degree day, the inside of a car can get up to 138 degrees in as little as 90 minutes. Items in your one-person survival pack should include water, life straw and purification tablets, laminated maps, ammo, emergency poncho, survival blanket, N95 mask, MREs or freeze-dried food, flashlight, matches and fire starters, a fuel siphon. This one's often overlooked. What happens if you run out of gas? In the event of a disaster, you may have to siphon some fuel from an abandoned car to get to your home or bug-out location. Iodine tablets. These are used to help with radiation poisoning in the event of a nuclear attack. Hand sanitizer, binoculars, a crank radio, a power pack, a good first aid kit, a quality one with a tourniquet and with, field dressings and more complex things that most basic first aid kits wouldn't have. A knife or a multi-tool, fix-a-flat, an expandable pan for cooking, and a ham radio. These are just a few of the things to think about. This is not an all-inclusive list. What you will need will vary based on a lot of different factors. Be sure not to forget about your kids and pets. You may need to throw an extra diaper or a bottle of formula in, or keep a can of cat or dog food if you're bugging out with your pets. Also, if you wear contacts, be sure to have extra contacts and saline. Don't forget about any specific medical needs, like having an EpiPen if you have any specific allergies, for example, if you're to shellfish or nuts. There may come a point where you have to eat fish to survive or find a jar of peanut butter. It sounds kind of crazy, but you never know. On a side note, since most people will keep their survival pack in the car with them, consider buying a good quality large camouflage tarp to keep in the car that you could cover and conceal your car if need be. I would suggest finding one with like a real tree or mossy oak pattern, not a cheap generic old military style camo. What would happen if you needed to abandon your car? Have you thought about that? Having a tarp like this would allow you to possibly conceal your vehicle for an extended period of time if need be. Just a thought. Number 3 is water. A human being can only survive about 3 days without water. This will be number 2 on the list, but obviously I included it in the survival packs. But you will need to have plenty of clean water for drinking and cleaning on hand whenever you choose to go. Everyone should have a large rainwater collection tank at their home and your bug out location, and be sure also to have life straws, water purification tablets, and tubs designated for cleaning, as well as bleach or anything else you need for sanitation. Number 4 is food. As with water, the average human can only survive between 8 to 21 days without consuming food. Obviously, this varies greatly depending on body mass, age, and health. So it's important to have and keep emergency food supplies, MREs, canned food, and or freeze-dried food around. In addition, having a sustainable garden or greenhouse that you can grow your own fresh food is desired. Food supplies probably won't ever give you the nutritional value your body truly needs long term. Many preppers love hydroponic gardens for their higher yield, sustainability, and space-saving convenience. Chickens are a superb resource to have as they will continue to lay eggs, and the chickens themselves can be eaten if need be. Some varieties of chickens, such as Silkies, are also very docile and easy to care for. Ideally, a well-prepared home will have a combination of extensive food storage, a sustainable garden or greenhouse, and animals such as chickens. Be sure that any food supplies that are not used right away are properly labeled and dated, and that everyone is aware of their shelf life. Number 5 is shelter. No matter where you choose to be in the event of a disaster, your location will your location be able to sustain fallout from a nuclear blast, high winds, tornadoes, or gunfire? Sounds kind of extreme to ask that question, especially about gunfire or nuclear fallout, but hey, anything's possible. Obviously, if you live too close to a nuclear attack, odds are, unless you have a shelter deep underground with absolutely superb built-in ventilation systems, you're probably not going to survive. Preppers that have the means will be smart to look into having an underground bunker or survival shelter of some kind. Shipping containers are an extremely popular, cost-effective way to have a durable, quality shelter at a reasonable price. In most cases, used shipping containers can be bought for around $5,000 to $6,000 or less. They're strong and they can be easily modified to add ventilation, water, and waste purification systems. Many companies manufacture and sell professional-grade shelters, but these are usually expensive. A geodesic dome is an extremely strong above-ground shelter that will be a good option for those where digging is not a feasible option. A good concrete company can usually make one for you on your property. For those that don't have the means to invest in a shelter of some kind, always be sure to have a large supply of tarps, ratchet straps, ropes, chains, and boards, and plywood to make any makeshift repairs on your home that may be necessary in the event of a disaster. Having pre-cut pieces of plywood for all your windows is a smart idea in any situation, especially more so for those who live on the coast or areas that are more likely to experience hurricanes or tornadoes. For those bugging out, having strong waterproof tents is a must, even if you are traveling to a bug-out location. Remember, the roads may be blocked and impassable, and you may be delayed or not make it to your bug-out location. Number 6 is sanitation. Okay, so a disaster is struck and you're at home or your bug-out location safely and hunkered down for the long haul. You have all your preps with you. You have plenty of food and water, reliable shelter, plenty of clothing, supplies, and weapons for defense. Now you have to think about keeping your various supplies, and even more so, your clothes and body, clean. You're going to need cleaning products such as Dawn and bleach handy, and plenty of them, to help keep your clothes, dishes, water supply, and shelter clean. The last thing you want to do is get sick with cholera, polio, dysentery, or any number of other diseases that are spread and attributed to poor sanitation. Remember, in the event of a major disaster, the population may be in chaos, and access to doctors and hospitals may not be possible. In situations like this, not having access to antibiotics or otherwise routine treatments and medications could mean the difference between life and death. Just think about that for a minute. As far as keeping your body clean, don't forget your normal soaps, shaving, and hygiene products. Keeping them in bulk from wholesale warehouse retailers like Sam's Club and Costco is a good idea. You may have to ration them in the event of a disaster and the supply chain being cut off. In a pinch, just having bulk, huge-sized bottles of Dawn will serve as a good multi-purpose liquid that can be used for human and food sanitation. Also, keep lots of baking soda. There are lots and lots of different uses for baking soda a lot of people don't even know about. Solar showers are a great thing to have, and many outdoor retailers like REI sell portable propane showers. If you have to, you can dig a hole in the ground and have a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat cover as a makeshift toilet. Number 7 is communication. In the event of a disaster, the odds that you, your family, and any of your friends and neighbors will all be together and sheltered in place is going to be extremely low. You'll need the means to try and communicate with all these people and make sure they are safe and coordinate getting everyone back home or to your bug out location. Having short and long-range communication is a necessity. You will also need to have the means to listen to emergency band channels to monitor police, fire, and the weather. You may also need to listen to see if there are any hostile people looking to take advantage of those less fortunate in a time of crisis. Walkie-talkies, crank, and solar-powered radios are great to have, as well as investing in some good ham radios. Ham radios can be very complicated to use and operate, and you have to legally hold a license to transmit via ham radio bands. Obviously, in the event of a true major disaster, no one will be there to enforce such laws, and even less so care. It'll be a good idea to consult with a ham radio operator to help you get up and running and get set up on local channels that have repeaters that will allow you to transmit more than a few miles. Unless you are already a ham radio operator, you probably don't have the skills and knowledge to set up and transmit via ham radio. There are lots of ham radio manuals and books you can buy to help you get set up, but I really recommend finding an experienced operator to help you out. If you don't know any, hop on social media and find some Facebook groups of ham radio enthusiasts in your area. You may have to pay someone a small fee, but more than likely you can find someone to help you out. Those on a much higher prepping budget can also look into getting some sat phones. Odds are that in the event of a true disaster, the rich and elite will still have access to their sat phones, and the elite will ensure satellite transmission is still possible. Another great idea is to have a couple of cheap, untraceable burner phones. You can go to most any electronics retailer and pay cash for a prepaid phone and an airtime card. Obviously, they have no way of knowing if you put it under a different name than your own. In the event of martial law or war, having an untraceable phone may become very important. There is, of course, no guarantees that phone networks will be up and available, and the government and tech companies can still trace any phone at any time, but they at least won't know it's you using that said phone. Number 8 is defense and tactical. We just talked about the chance of martial law or war. This is a particular scenario that no one wants to think about, but as preppers, we have to. Disasters, famine, economic collapse, and all these doomsday scenarios are hard to think of and imagine, but unfortunately, times like these bring out the best and the worst in people. There are those people who will seek to be kind and good and help those in times of need, and then there are those people who prey on the weak and needy. Don't fall into that category. Being well equipped to defend yourself and your family is an absolute must. As with many categories I've discussed, I could and may at some point do an entire show on tactical and defense for preppers, but in the interest of time and the theme of this show being just an overview and guide for prepping, I'm just going to cover the basics. Guns, guns, and more guns. Ammo, ammo, and more ammo. What size, caliber, types of guns you have is up to you and your needs, but make sure you at least have a quality handgun on you at all times, or whenever possible and legal where you live. Also have a quality rifle and shotgun. An AR is a great gun for a true tactical situation. If your state requires a concealed carry permit for your handgun, get one. You can build a good tactical gun such as an AR piece by piece, which in doing so makes it untraceable. I personally myself do believe that we will reach a point in society where our government will try to come and confiscate all our guns. In this case, having a good untraceable gun will be a necessity. Not going to get into it more than that in this episode, probably a little bit more in the future, but for now, just heed my words. As I stated with my very first pillar of prepping, preparation and practice, know your guns, how to shoot them, and how to clean them. In the event things get really bad and you find yourself in a shootout, having more advanced tactical equipment such as bulletproof vests and helmets may be the difference between life and death. If you get a vest, I recommend getting a level 3+ or level 4. It's going to be worth the extra money. If you get a helmet, make sure it's a quality ballistic helmet. Don't be fooled by Amazon paintball knockoffs. They won't protect you from real bullets. And make sure it fits properly. It won't help you if it's tight and comfortable. Keep plenty of small mechanisms of defense around, such as knives and axes and hatchets. These can also double in use for food prep, foraging, and building or repairing a shelter. Tannerite is a generally legal explosive used for firearms practice and sold in kit form. It may be extremely useful in helping set up booby traps and defend and deter would-be thieves and looters. Now let's talk surveillance. Monitoring your property and that, if possible, invaders will be of utmost importance. Buy some quality binoculars and make sure to have some in every member of your family's survival packs. We don't even want to think about having to do this, but in the event that you ever have to take from another to provide for your family, probably the biggest game changer will be a good set of night vision binoculars or a monocular. If you ever have to do so, you'll want to do it at night. Military-grade night vision is insanely expensive, but cheaper consumer-grade night vision will usually be good enough to get the job done. It just won't have nearly the range or clarity of military-grade equipment. If you really have a huge prepping budget, go get you a FLIR camera. Then you can track any heat signature coming into your property. For most of us that never want to have to think about having to take from others, possibly the biggest game changer will be having a quality surveillance drone. A good one will allow you to stay safely in the confines of your shelter and surveil your property. Again, if you really have an unlimited budget, you can get one with FLIR and night vision built in. As with ham radios, of course, you're supposed to have a license to fly and operate one, but again, we're talking disaster scenarios here, and in that case, no one will be there to enforce such laws or care. All right, next, let's briefly talk about home security. My fellow budget preppers, having a cheap home security system is a necessity. For those on a serious budget, you can buy decoy cameras that mount outside your home that don't actually work. But to a would-be invader, chances are, unless they work in that industry or professional, they probably can't tell that they don't actually work. It may be the difference between a burglary attack happening or not. Those that have ADT or one of those contract security systems, be aware that in the event of a true disaster, that the government can and will be able to infiltrate those companies and access their systems. I personally don't want to be one of those companies defending my house in the event it really hits the fan. Invest in a non-internet-based security system for your home that can't be accessed or hacked remotely. The last thing I'm going to talk about is by far the most important. Can anyone take a guess as to what percentage of your life the average person spends sleeping? Anyone? If you guessed 1/3 of your life, you're correct. How high of a chance then does it make that a burglary or a break-in may occur while you're asleep? For this reason, you need to have a firearm at arm's reach by your bedside. I recommend having at the very least a firearm, a good flashlight, or a spotlight, and some extra ammo in close reach. Personally, I keep my bulletproof vest on my bedside dresser. Just a piece of advice. Before I move on to the next topic, remember firearm safety is critical. Even if your bedside dresser or drawer, make sure your kids can't access your guns. You want to be prepared, but you want to be smart and safe at the same time. Number 9 is medical. I touched on for just a minute about an extreme disaster that doctors and hospitals may be inaccessible. Remember that. Keep plenty of medical supplies on hand. For those of you that may happen to be fortunate enough to have a doctor or pharmacist in your circle, see about getting some extra amoxicillin and really any other basic antibiotics you can get your hands on. Keep plenty of aspirin, ibuprofen, and even Narcan. Don't forget special needs that may be specific to you or your family, like insulin for diabetics. You may not have access to those kinds of things if it hits the fan. You can order the NEEMT study guide on Amazon or online. It is a superb resource for emergency medical care. If you have the time, read it and study it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I just recommend doing a review of your family and any of their particular medical needs and coming up with a plan in the event doctors and hospitals aren't accessible. Number 10 is currency and barter. In the event of multiple different disaster scenarios, chances are you may not be able to get to the bank to access your money. I'm a big advocate for not keeping a ton of money in the bank. That being said, having a good fireproof safe in your home is extremely important. At the same time, make sure you don't have a small one that a burglar or invader can carry or hand truck out of your home easily. There's also a wisdom here, albeit a risky one, to the philosophy of not keeping all your eggs in one basket. Maybe keep a hidden cash or two of buried cash somewhere safe. Just remember to put it in a plastic or non-metallic container that can't be found by some random person out metal detecting. If you're confident in your location, you can buy some coins somewhere too. Gold, silver, and precious metals will be the go-to in the event of a collapse of the financial system. Personally, I think converting a great deal of your cash to gold is smart. Gold does nothing but increase in value. It obviously makes it much harder to access when you need it, but it will sit there and increase in value and be there for you when it gets really bad, and you can use it to pay for goods and services. I think precious metals and the barter system will become the standard if the world goes crazy for an extended period of time. Number 11 is books and literature. So if the grid goes down and we don't have power for an extended period of time, how will you access the internet, Google, or YouTube when you need to know something you otherwise wouldn't know? If you answer you won't, you're right. Books are slowly being phased out in favor of tablets, phones, and computers. In the event of an EMP attack, hackers, or the grid going down, you simply won't be able to access the information you need from electronic systems. Good preppers have and keep paper copies of information you need to prep. Order and keep books on prepping, foraging, canning, first aid, electrical, plumbing, automotive repair, really anything you can think of. Get copies and make sure to put them in waterproof bags or containers. It will make all the difference in the world having good information when you need it. Number 12 is technology. Even if the grid does go down, having some technological items will still be important. We will still need to run generators, radios, and other devices that run off electricity, just not directly off the power grid. For this reason, it is important to keep plenty of power banks, charging cords, and any kind of solar-operated equipment you can. You will still need to charge your ham radios, walkie-talkies, and other devices used for communication and power generation. Take an inventory of what you have and what you need. Remember to protect these items when not in use with a Faraday bag. Go on YouTube and you can learn how to build a DIY Faraday cage for your generators and larger items to protect them as well. There is a wide variety of solar-powered equipment that companies sell that are excellent for long-term off-grid use. Look into what you need and what you can afford. Number 13 is fuel supplies. Speaking of generators, unless you have solar power, you're going to need fuel supplies to power them. Personally, I have a huge dual fuel generator that runs off gas or propane. Propane burns very clean and won't clog fuel systems like gasoline will over time. That being said, is also slightly less efficient, so you will lose some wattage burning propane instead of using regular gasoline. But propane stores nearly indefinitely and doesn't go bad, and you have to be switched out and replaced like gasoline does. So you can get a couple of 50 or even 100-gallon tanks and store them long-term for what you need to power your generators. But you will still want to keep a good supply of gasoline on hand for getting around as long as possible in your vehicles, assuming there was an EMP attack that destroyed your vehicle's electrical system. This is when having that fuel siphon I told you to put in your survival pack may come in real handy. Number 14 is entertainment. One of the things I think a lot of people overlook when prepping is keeping the mental well-being of you and your family during an extended crisis. So disaster is struck and you're hunkered down in your bunker or shelter for who knows how long. You have all your supplies, food, and water. Do you know how long you're going to be in this situation? More importantly, do you know how long whatever the root cause of your dilemma will be taking place? Odds are the answer is no. Are you and your family mentally prepared for the stress and challenges that lie ahead? These are also important things to think about. Having an extra TV that has a DVD player built in would be a great idea. Many manufacturers make small ones that are compact and affordable. Get one for every member of your family if you can afford it. You can get tons of DVDs cheap these days and have a bin full of TV series and movies. Having board games, playing cards, and any other good cheap forms of entertainment on hand will be a huge help keeping you and your family's sanity in times like these. Men, or in some cases moms, who are the heads of your respected households, these are the times when your children, elderly, and other family members are going to look for you for strength and support. You have to be strong and at least portray the vision of strength and confidence. Your family will be looking to you for guidance in these kind of times. If you show them that you are strong and confident, then they will be more at ease and feel better about surviving and getting back to some kind of normalcy. All right, last one here is number 15, nuclear and biological. Probably of all the doomsday scenarios, this is the most difficult and unpredictable one to prepare for, especially the threat of a nuclear attack. The predicted kill zone of a nuclear blast will vary greatly depending on the size and yield of the warhead in question, but some studies have shown that many people that have good shelters would survive within 2 to 7 miles. But the radioactive fallout could extend upwards of 20 miles or more. Even if you were on the very outer edge of the radioactive fallout, long-term complications such as lung damage, ear damage, and cancers could develop later that could be fatal. As far as a pandemic or communicable disease, there is no possible way to predict the spread or timetable of infection without having good advanced knowledge ahead of time. By the time you find out about it, the disease may have spread to a large part of the population or at least the area of the region where you live. For both of these scenarios, it's extremely important to have good quality gas masks or respirators. You get what you pay for here. If you get Amazon cheapos, that's what you're going to get. Extra N95 respirator masks, iodine pills, Tyvek suits, and duct tape to repair any possible holes, gloves, extra cartridges for your masks, and lots of bleach, disinfectants, and cleaning supplies on hand to clean and disinfect any surfaces. Side note there, men, those of you beard guys, you will have to shave your beard to get a good seal on your gas mask. This is when some extra medical training and volunteering in your local fire department can come in real handy. They can provide you with the skills and training to recognize and prepare for these kinds of situations. For those of you preppers with a larger budget, get you a good quality Geiger counter to measure any potential radiation that could come from a nuclear attack. All right, that's it. There you have my 15 pillars of prepping. Again, for the record, I'm not an accredited prepping expert, but I have been prepping for a long time. I know, and I'm a student of the art. What you may need in relation to what I've told you here may vary. Everyone's needs will be different based on a lot of different factors. You and your family and whoever else you prep with will need to sit down and talk about what you will need and can afford, where you will go, what you will take with you, and come up with at least a plan B if plan A doesn't work out. Heck, come up with contingency plans for plan A and plan B. One thing you can never be is over-prepared. So prepping for me is a passion. I will be doing plenty more shows on various prepping-related subjects. Let me know what you want to hear about. Hit me up on my social media accounts. You can find me on Facebook or X, or email me at thepppodcast@yahoo.com and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you back next week when we dab into part 3 of my show theme, the paranormal.
Thank you for listening to the Politics, Prepping, and Paranormal Podcast. Your source for real news and analysis on politics, prepping, paranormal, conspiracy theories, and the volatile state of the world we live in. Tune in next week and every week for a new episode, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay vigilant.